So I've put together a little suggested system under $500 with a mono synth and sequencer in it. A little while back, I made a video. Someone challenged me in the comments to see if I could make some sort of Eurorack system under $500. And I put together almost like a bit of an audio processing system. And I'll link that video somewhere or down below or something. And then a guy called Mark commented on that video and said it's almost proved that, it's impossible to make a sound source based modular system for under $500. And I thought, well, that sounds like a good challenge. So it's worth mentioning he won't be rude, and we speak, quite a bit on YouTube, Mark and myself. So, but I said to him, that would be a good challenge. So that's what I've done. I've designed something that I think works. So I'll show you that. If I seem a bit deflated today, it's because I've had a hard morning. I put together a rack unit to store some outboard gear, and I thought it was going to be a bit of an easy win. And it was a right nightmare, and I've cut myself pretty badly. And then I've recorded this once already, but then my SD card corrupted. So it's been a tough old morning. It's enjoyable for the most part, putting these videos out, so hopefully it's helpful. Listen, as always, I'm not really offering any advice because, with things being modular, they are just that. You can build it up with the building blocks that suit you to be whatever system you want it to be. It doesn't have to be something that I've come up with or anybody else. But I always say if you're going into it just thinking you'll spend $500 or £500, it's probably not worth doing because you need to be sort of building and expanding and experimenting and then further expanding. And, you'll find that you need things, or you'll find you want things to change your system a little bit. And also, for that kind of price, if you're just going to put some sort of mono synth together and sequencer, there's probably cheaper options in hardware if that's your budget, or even in software. But it's still fun to do, and there are things that modular does that other things can't, certainly around probability, chance, maths, CV, those sort of things. So I can see why someone would want to do it still, which is why, obviously, I do see the value of this video still. So the system I've gone for is like a mono synth with a sequencer, like I say. So not dissimilar to, let's say, something like an MS-20, except, different in every conceivable way. It'll be nothing like an MS-20. It'll be nowhere near as good either. But and MS-20 is the king of all mono synths for me. So I've made a list of the things that I want to include in my system. So this is what I wanted to include. I'm going to read it to you now, by the way. So a clock and triggers, a sequencer, a complete voice, and some modulation. I don't want to teach people how to suck eggs or anything, but I get that a lot of people who are coming to my videos are maybe just starting out in modular and synthesis. So what I mean by a complete voice is an oscillator, a filter, a VCA, and an envelope of some description. You can buy those as individual modules, or you can buy some modules that are a complete voice. They have all those things in one module. When you're working on a small case like what I'm going to be working on, that's going to be important. So last thing before we jump into modular grid, I always base it on that little 32 HP Dope case back there, so it's really small. And I also don't include the case and the power in the price. Recently did the Colorado Modular Society monthly meetup this month, and there was a lady on there called Heidi who made some cases out of paper mache or papier mache or le papier, I don't know, but anyway, it looked really fun and it was really obviously affordable, cheap, so that might be worth checking out if you want to make a cheap case. I mentioned some other options in the last video as well last time. And then I'm using the Poly End Anywhere in my system for power, so it's portable in that one back there. So that does come at a separate cost as well, obviously. They're about 120 quid or something if you can get hold of one. So 32 HP minus the 4 HP for the power, that leaves me with, quick maths here, that leaves me with 28 HP. Now that I've done that, I hope people realise that was a joke and I can do maths quicker than that, because otherwise people are just going to think that I'm embarrassingly stupid. Before this corrupts again, and I have to do this for a third time, I'm going to jump into the computer and go through some modular grid with you. Right, so the first thing I want is a clock, and I'm going to try and get something that'll do the triggers as well. So I know Noise Engineering make quite a good one. The Solemn. So let's add that. So that's a master clock. It's 129 euros. It's in euros on here, but 129 euros, 4 HP. So next up I want to look at my sequencer. Now I did think of a few sequencers actually. I know Laddick did one. I don't know what it's called, but I know they do one. So here, look, for €62, so I think it's about 50 quid on their website, you can get the S143 4-note sequencer, which is quantized with patterns and random. So that sounds quite good. So that's quite a small sequencer we could use. I know that Erica Synth do a Pico. Let's look at, if you come down here to function, sequencer. So there is this Pico Synth 16-step CV and gate sequencer. It's slightly more though, 120, but that's another option. And that's 3 HP, so really small still. But one idea I quite like was to go with this tonic. So it's a bit more, it's 150. So we've seen we could save a lot of money on this by going even cheaper. But I quite like the idea of this, and it's 6 HP and about €150. But the way it works is you can feed triggers into these, or you can trigger it with the buttons as well, which makes it quite performative. You can send CV out from that into your voice, and depending on how you trigger it, will depend on the order of what notes come out. And obviously you can add notes with the buttons as well. So I quite like the idea of that in this system, to keep it interactive and performative still. So I've gone for that so far. Okay, so then we need a voice. So you can actually go to function and select synth voice. And these are all modules that are complete voices. So if I go to popular, stuff like Platt's are really popular but slightly more expensive. But things like the Pico, again, you could probably make up a full Pico system or a full 2 HP system, which I think Mark mentioned in his comment. But just to keep it interesting and different, what I thought was that we'd maybe go for one of the Dope units. So we've got this miniature synth voice for $180. It comes in black for $190, but we'll just go for the cheaper one. So I know the price down here suggests that we're far over our budget, but that's obviously taking into account the power as well, which is $155. If I take that out, we're still under there, and that's in euros as well, don't forget. So we are still under. And then the last thing is some modulation, and I thought the Dope again would be quite good for this if we went for, say, a quad LFO, and that'll give us 4. So there's a quad LFO that'll fit in. We've actually got 4 HP of space left, but I think we'll have run out of budget. So taking the power out like we agreed, and just looking at those 4 modules, we're looking at €539, which is about £463. So obviously under £500. So we actually do have a little bit in the budget if we were saying £500. And what I would probably put in there, which I'm not going to look for, but what I probably would put in there is some sort of output, just in case that this comes out quite hot. And if you're going into a mix or your interface or whatever, at least it'll bring it out at line level then. So with that look, ignoring the power in the case, we've got the clock and triggers, the sequencer, the full voice with, you know, everything, your filter, your VCF, your VCA, etc., your envelope, and then 4 LFOs that we can modulate everything with. So I think maybe with that exact system that I potentially just went over the $500 mark. Obviously it was well under in pounds, but I think I said that I'd do it in dollars. Before you all start screaming at me, I did go for a more expensive sequencer than I needed to, and a more expensive clock than I needed to. So I could have reduced those. We could use the Laddick like I mentioned, and then it would have been under the price that we'd agreed on. But it was still under £500, and I live in England, so that's my currency. And it's confusing. It's confusing when you've got a global audience like myself. Global audience on your back. Hopefully, anyway, you see what I kind of did. The beauty of modular, because it's high stakes Lego, you can just swap things out and put your own stuff in there anyway. Obviously, I didn't go out and buy those modules because, like I said to you, I'm not interested in creating just a standalone mono synth with a sequencer. I've got that within my bigger system, but I like it to be part of a wider system or a bigger system. I need a new way of finishing my videos because I always either just don't bother with an ending because the majority of people maybe don't make it that far anyway, or I do bother with an ending, but it's just me like awkwardly saying goodbye. So if anyone knows any good ways of ending these videos, let me know in the comments, or if there's a good joke that you want me to finish on. But then people will know that I haven't come up with it, because I don't tend to come out with many good jokes, do I? All mine tend to be, they amuse me, but they tend to be quite poor. Subscribe if you want. If you don't, you don't. Fair enough. I'm not bothered. Thanks for watching anyway. I am bothered though. I just tried to pretend like I wasn't bothered to be cool, but I am bothered. Please subscribe, please. And hit the like and all them things. I don't like asking for all them things, but they are important. I appreciate that, so just do them. You'll have to deal with an awkward outro today until you come up with some suggestions of a better outro. So thanks for watching. Bye.